I want to welcome you to the speaker's version of Sky Thunder Radio Arizona. And this is the Daily Show, where I, Dr. G. Lee Barrett, am not only executive producer, but am the DJ and host. Today, we have a special guest with us, none other than Apostle Anthony Holt, who will be addressing the swing and undecided voters. We're not going to do too much music because this is an important topic, and I want him to get into the meat and potato of this topic. It is imperative that we address this because we have to make a difference at the ballot box come the 3rd. We have to. So much is depending on it. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Apostle Anthony Holt.
Dr. Barrett, appreciate you for your time today and for giving me an opportunity to have a stage for a few moments to address some issues that's going on in our community that is very important to all of us as citizens of the United States of America, as well as to speak to the current conditions of our society as a whole. I know that, we look at numbers in Arizona right now, and we look at the good numbers as well as those things that are not as good. And please, if you have any questions, Dr. Barrett, please ask them and encourage your listeners to also ask. I would love to be able to address some of these things. Now, a little bit about myself quickly. I've been pastor in the Valley for quite a few years. I've been in Arizona for 13 years. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. Have worked extensively in community outreach in both states as well as professionally as a youth mental health counselor and pastoring various churches and been in the ministry for many years, many years. One of the things I look at is that with our current state of affairs, one of the great things...
Doc, can you explain to the voters what got you involved in community affairs and what led you to not just pastoring, but what led you into the political arena?
Thank you, Doctor. Yes. Looking at so many demographics as African Americans, we tend to be shortchanged on a lot of areas. We tend to be shortchanged in the schools, in the neighborhoods, in medication, as far as our medical ability to services for fresh groceries, fresh fruits and vegetables in our grocery stores. There are so many misappropriations that come with our neighborhoods as far as how our kids go to school, where our kids go to school. We know that a zip code can drastically change the state of affairs in where a child goes to school. I was recently very set back and appalled with what is known as the school to prison pipeline with our young people that are being thought out to be treated differently and how punishment is being set out. So our children are more likely to be, and children of color in general are more likely to be not only disciplined more harshly, but we're also more likely to be expelled from school, and that causes a downtrodden affair where we find our children are now removed from their classroom. They're removed from the ability to find access to the classroom. Next thing you know, a lot of these kids find themselves dropping out or becoming so far behind that they become hopeless and they just give up. So when you say what led me to this, just being a black man in America and seeing the travesties and atrocities that go on day to day with us as a society, I think, you know what? If I'm not being a part of the solution, I'm a part of the problem. So, being a pastor, I could no longer stay on the sidelines and just said that preaching the gospel from a pulpit on Sunday morning was satisfactory. Because my parishioners, as well as my friends, my family, and my neighbors, they got they had more issues than just what Sunday morning could address. It was every day. It was all facets of not just spirituality, but their finances, their ability to gain or to have access to clean drinking water, have access to fresh fruit and vegetables, have access to good medical care. So at the end of the day, for me to be satisfied with the work that God called me to do, I had to be all hands on deck as far as my affiliations in the political arena as well as in the community activism as and advocating for those who are what we will call the underdog, but those who are less fortunate or would less likely achieve and receive the services necessary to benefit our black people.
Now, Doc, you said something about the zip code, and I find it ironic that you speak on the zip code because just recently we had um, a census vote, and I often spoke and encouraged people to get and fill out the census um, because of the importance of census and the benefits um, that we would receive um, because of those census. Can you speak on that?
Yes, the census is just another matter that is tied into why we're having this conversation today. We know that the census comes up every 10 years, and those numbers represent the community. They represent our political background, our political backing as far as who represents us at the state, local, and federal level. It represents how much funding we get for our schools, how much funding we get for our roads. It is how much funding we get for our medical system, our hospitals, our doctors' offices, our clinics. The census is so important. It represents so much of the vital services that are necessary for us to function in an ever-changing society. One of the biggest problems we find is that in most of our uh, Hispanic populations, especially, they've been given so much negative information or so much constant information that says that the numbers that we count are representing citizenship, but they're counting whether or not you're legal to be here. In our African American neighborhood, it said that we represent how many felons are in the neighborhood, how many of those who have had the run-ins with the law. And all these were geared to people of color, to and minorities of color, to get them not to give an accurate number so that the representation in our areas would be less. And it's unfortunate because when we talk about the zip code can change so dramatically. And you find a zip code 853 or 85323, and then you look at an 85322 or 85385, and you ask yourself, well, why is it that Litchfield Park gets more funding for their schools than South Phoenix? Why is North Avondale not represented as well as some places in supplies of Sun City West? And the question comes back to how is the information assimilated? And then we as community activists, we as pastors, we as individuals that the community trusts, how are we getting out that information? How are we assimilating that information to our constituents, to our family members, to all of those who are able to say, hey, we need very pertinent information. We need information that is precise and to the point. We don't need this watered down or cast over information because it's really not information that catches the eye or the ear of the person who's not informed, who really is desiring to be informed.
Okay. So it just goes back to show you the importance of being counted. It goes back to not only the dollars, but it goes to representation in um, the who represents us in the state house, who represents us in the uh, assembly, and depending on um, the census, our um, representation can change.
Absolutely. And the thing is that Dr. Barrett, is one of the things we have to do better as community leaders, as pastors, as community activists, as our young people. And one of the things is I'm working on the Biden Harris campaign here in Arizona. I work with some very, I was so proud of these young people. I work with some very
Did I lose you? Hello?
Dr. Barrett, I didn't know somebody else was calling in. I work with some dynamic young people here lately that's working on really pushing this agenda to get out the vote with our young people and mobilize and really, it does my heart well as an older gentleman, as an older Black American who has done this for years. And when I was a young man, wanting to be mobilized and wanting to be in the fight and having some good mentors who led me down the path I'm on now. Now to see these young people in the Arizona Democratic Party and the Black young Democrats, and man, I can just tell you, Doctor, these young people are on fire for this fight. Not so much just because it's necessary to bring about change, but it's because they see the importance of their generation going forward. And to hear them speak about what they want their future to look like, and to understand that they have excuse the expression, but a dog in the fight. It's heartwarming to see this. So
Well,
I encourage more as your listeners are on, and as we as pastors and community groups, I encourage us to encourage our young people to get involved and get into the fight. Don't stay on the sidelines saying, hey, let the old guys do it, or the old guys are in the way, they're not letting us work. Knock the doors down. Get involved, because this is your future. These generations of the next guy up, you and I both know our days are, you're younger than I am, so you got probably more days than I do. The statistics say it right, but whatever God chooses. But we need to prepare the next group of young people. And by doing so, we ensure their future the way our parents and our grandparents ensured our future. But the fight is it's not getting any easier. You know what I mean?
no.
This fight is continuously getting more difficult as times go on, as issues arise. We see that over the summer, the Breonna Taylor, the George Floyd, this reminds us of our 1960s, our 1960 summers. I remember the 68 riots in Detroit. I remember seeing the tanks go up and down Woodward and go up and down Claremont and the smoke billowing testimony from the buildings that were on fire. I remember the 78 riots in Detroit, up and down Illinois. So, I see our young people understanding and concerned about what does their America look like tomorrow. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to get into a little bit about why we're here today. Unless you have a question for me or you want to move to something else.
I just want to say, you said something about young people and having a dog in the fight, and I think it's imperative, and I think our young people see how imperative it is because it's them that's getting pulled over. It's them that's being attacked. It's them that's dying in the streets. It's not the old people that's being attacked. It's not the old people that are being discriminated against. It's the young people.
Absolutely.
And that makes you want to speak up. That makes you want to do something about it. When you're unjustly targeted, when you're unjustly discriminated against, it makes you want to stand up and stand out.
And that is what I'm witnessing here lately is a group of young people who are not afraid to stand up and stand out. I work with a young woman on a project right now. This is a phenomenal young lady. I'm not gonna call her name out because I haven't been given permission to do that as yet, and I'm very careful about dropping people's names. But I'm working with a young lady right now who is going to bat for something she truly believes in, and she has built a great coalition of people in the Phoenix area to work on getting a mural painted. And she's relentless. And the group of young people she has with her, and then there is an older group behind her, like myself and some others, who are just marveled by her tenacity and her willingness to just get out there and make a difference in her community for people that look like her, people of her age group. And it's saying that, it says train a child up in the way he should go, and then when he gets older, he'll never depart from it. And I'm starting to see that somewhere along the line, Doctor, we as pastors have done a good job, or at least we've done started a well-doing job, because I see the group of young people that are coming up behind us, and they're taking the mantle, and they're doing a great job with it. They're not just kicking the can down the road and spitting up in the air. They're really focused in on change, and that we should be proud of that. And I for one can really say I am very proud of our young people. Now, what brings us here today is speaking to the minds and the hearts of those individuals who are still on the fence. Now, we know today is the last day of mail-in ballot, and tomorrow's the 28th. Tomorrow's the last day for early voting. So November 3rd will be the opportunity now for those who are left undecided and really wondering why a Biden-Harris ticket makes sense. Now, for some of us, I'm speaking to myself for one, it would be a no-brainer. That wouldn't even be a question. There are those who have some serious questions about both candidates, and I do understand them. I have looked on the matters, and I've spoke on them, and over the last month or so, I've addressed these issues with some younger voters or individuals who said that, well, Biden as well as Harris both put a lot of young black men in prison, and they're responsible for this, and they're responsible for taxes, and they're responsible for that. But here's where the question, Doctor, comes in. Here's where the answer comes in. First of all, let's look at two things. In the 90s, many of the young voters I'm speaking to today, and I mean this as no disrespect, because I never want to come off as I'm being arrogant, but many of the young voters I'm having that conversation with, they were not a thought in 1994. They weren't even imagined. Some of them who are adults now of voting age, their parents had just started voting during the time of this conversation. conversation about the 1994 crime bill. Then when you go in and actually read the crime bill, yes, there were some things that Biden was responsible for, and there are some things in the crime bill in California, in Oakland, that Senator Harris was responsible for. Yes, I cannot argue that they were doing their job. I cannot argue that they were following the letter of the law. I'm not going to argue with that. Some of the things were harsh, and they did affect men and women of color. Yes, that is true. But I also want them to understand that if we keep dwelling on what happened in the past, we're going to miss out on what is going on right now. I did a Facebook Live Monday, and I made a comment about 13 million seniors or 13 million recipients of Social Security. Now, really, in actuality, there are 65 million individuals throughout the United States who are getting some form of fashion of disability. Social Security, whether it be retirement or disability. The 13 million I referenced were individuals that I looked up who are getting nothing but Social Security, that were not getting any pension, no other kind of income coming in. It was also looking at most of the numbers that surrounded us in Arizona. So for nationwide, including disability as well as retirement, there are 65 million recipients of Social Security. Dr. Barrett, let me ask you a question. If the numbers go as we have heard reported, which says that if the federal income tax that pays into Social Security is removed and is no longer collected, by 2023, Social Security as we know it will be bankrupt and defunct. What do we do with 65 million recipients of Social Security? What do we do with them? Because 65 million people will no longer be able to pay their bills. 65 million people will no longer be paying into a system where it says that they buy groceries, they buy cars, they pay for utilities, they have medical needs, they buy they go out to eat, they go out to the movies. What do you do when 65 million people are erased immediately? How do you fathom that number, and how do you sleep at night knowing that you put 65 million people in a predicament where they will no longer be able to take care of themselves? So that's a talking point. Second talking point is that we have a president that is here now that has told us in the last few days that with the coronavirus that we must get used to living with. Well, I'm sure that 225,000 people would have rather be here today to argue whether living with it was possible when they no longer have the opportunity to live with it. I'm sure that if we talk about the economy, the stock market, how it has fallen in the last 2 weeks, how it tries to rebound the best it can, how right now we're looking at 22 million unemployed individuals. Now, the argument is that, 11 million jobs have been formulated even in the coronavirus epidemic. So let's be honest about that number. Out of that 11 million, over half of those individuals are individuals that returned back to work because certain businesses were open. But we're not looking at 11 million total new jobs. We still have 11 million people who are out of work, and because a lot of those numbers have not been counted, is because these people have stopped looking for work. We're looking at a system right now that has put thousands of people in Harris County in Texas right now. I work with a group of pastors in the Arizona Texas Coalition of Black Pastors who are working to get people to the polls to continue to get the vote out. Right now, Harris County is looking at thousands of individuals that are being evicted right now because the moratorium on evictions has been removed. These people are now being put in the street. They have nowhere to go. They have no income. We're looking at a president who removed the protections with the extra $600 a week unemployment benefit. Who said as an executive order, we're going to put $300 into people's pockets? There are people still wondering, where is that $300? There are people still have not in Arizona right now. Let's talk about Arizona because that's where we live. There are people right now in Arizona who have filed for unemployment benefits and have not received a dime as of yet. Not only did they not receive the $600 extra, they didn't receive anything. There are a large number of individuals, I being one of them, who received an unemployment credit card who did not apply for unemployment. I didn't apply for unemployment. I've never applied for unemployment, but I received a bank card from the Department of Human Services for unemployment to go out and start collecting unemployment. How does that happen? Well, some of this we can say, well, those are internal problems that have nothing to do with the president. But here's where we're getting at, Dr. Barrett. The problem is across the board, and it always starts, we know in the church, we always say this. If the church is not functioning correctly, you have to start with leadership. Right. The pastor has to take responsibility for what happens at the front door of his church. Go ahead, Pastor. Yeah. So when we look at the leadership
the buck starts and stops at his door.
It stops and starts at the front door, absolutely. I can't blame the senators or the representatives in the state of Arizona for the mishaps that go on in D.C. if I don't go to the problem in D.C. I can't talk about unifying my state as a whole when my country is at each other's throat because we have a president who right now is fanning the fuel of hate. Now people say, he hasn't done that. Well, guess what? Anytime you tell white supremacists that there are good people on every side, that's fueling the fire without ever striking the match. All you have to do is keep the wood to stoke the fire. When I ask people, I said, look at the heart of the man, and then ask yourself, am I voting for the right person? One thing we do know about Joe Biden, we will learn it about Senator Harris as we go on down this road. One thing we do know about Joe Biden, we know about 8 years of Joe Biden's heart. Why? Because the president that I always tell people, I said, people to this day talk about how much they love President Obama. They talk about how much they wish President Obama could have 8 more years. They talk about how much they loved and they missed the fact that we had an educated individual in the White House for 8 years. They had no scandals, no lawsuits, no news cycles every day that talked about him lying and cheating and stealing. Well, guess what? Those 8 years that Obama was in office, Joe Biden was sitting next to his side. Joe Biden was trusted to bring the economy back. President Obama trusted Joe Biden to look at getting money into the hands of the big three. Well, we know Ford didn't take any money, but we know that those individuals who did take money, that they got the money and they paid that money back. We look at Joe Biden went in and said, what can we do to help strengthen the ACA, what we call the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare? Now, granted, Dr. Barrett, I'm not going to be sitting here trying to blow the roof off the conversation because I'd be lying. Obamacare, yes, the ACA has a lot of issues that can be dealt with. President Obama even said so. There were things in the Affordable Care Act that, yes, we needed to hone in and change, and we need to make them better. Joe Biden and Harris are saying, we're going to go in there and we're going to make it better. We're going to look at what was taxing on the American people, what was taxing on their pocket, and we're going to look at those drug costs. We're going to look at those costs that have some people worried about, can they afford their coverage? We're going to look at opening the door so that more physicians can get involved in that circle so that people can retain their doctors. But what we're not going to do under a Biden-Harris ticket, what we're not going to do is we're not going to lie and tell the American people we're going to get rid of this and we're going to come back with this great, wonderful, stupendous, marvelous, worth better than ever was in history. We're going to come back with this this great plan. You can't come back to something that you don't have. And because if you get rid of the Affordable Care Act, you know this as well, Dr. Bear, we both have existing conditions. We know that if they get rid of our Care Act tomorrow, if they get rid of our health care, we fall into a place where we would not be able to get any health care under this current president's ideology of changing the system. Do you agree with that? I mean, am I saying things that's wrong? If I'm wrong, tell me, possible. I need some help here.
No, it's like you said, being having a disability myself, um, there's some things that are of there's a lot of things that are of concern. One of them being pre-existing conditions, um, and with a Trump ticket, and what's the other guy?
With Pence?
Huh?
You talking about Mike Pence?
No, the one that's running against Sally.
R. Kelly.
Yeah. Um, I'm afraid that um, our benefits will either decrease or we'll lose our benefits. And that is something that really, really scares me. Um, because I depend on Medicaid, I depend on Medicare.
And,
Go
and
ahead.
you know, I'm glad you brought that up because that's the voter that we're trying to get to understand. That involvement right there, that's the problem. That's what we're trying to get people to understand. That fear is raging across so many households right now in the state of Arizona, but it's also raging across so many households in our union as a whole. There are individuals right now who are, like you say, they are in a position where they are no longer able to work and get health care from an employer. So they're dependent on Medicare, Medicaid. They're dependent on Social Security. These things are the lifelines to them being able to stay alive. Your medication is tied. Your life is tied to your medication.
Yeah.
If we allow things to go the way they're going, with the conversation that we've heard, and see, it's not me saying it, it's not you saying it, it's the dinner table conversation, what we hear out of this president's mouth. We hear in one minute, go ahead, sir.
No, I'm just saying, I'm in agreement,
Yeah.
He talks about getting rid of Social Security. He talks about getting rid of redoing and revamping healthcare. Well, you get rid of Social Security, that's my lifeblood. I depend on Social Security like I have to eat.
Right.
And for him to nonchalantly say that he wants to get rid of it, that scares me, that worries me.
So what we need to make sure of as one of my goals for the next 7 days is to promote and push. And I thank you once again. I appreciate the opportunity to come on your radio show and be able to discuss these matters because an informed voter makes a great voter because you feel confident about the decision you're making. I understand that there are individuals who think that the current administration is good for us as a country because they can make the stock market or they can make um, the GDP go up. And I look at that and I asked them, I said, things that us as preachers we depend on as far as when we're making a plea to people about the way they think. And he said, what profit a man gains the whole world and lose his only soul? What profit you to have a high GDP or a great stock market, and I got 65 million people that can't survive. They have no way of paying to take care of themselves. What profit do I have if I lose another 250,000 people to a disease that could probably have been put up under a little bit better control or much better control than it is now?
That's something else that scares me. The man has no plan.
Absolutely.
I mean, one minute he will say one thing, the next minute he'll say something else. I don't think he knows what he wants to do. And the bad thing about it is, this is even after he contracted it. He still don't know what he wants to do, and that's scary.
And see, the beauty and the thing about that conversation is that I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I don't want to get into that right now because that's not what we're talking about. But I doubt very soon if he even had it. But if he did have it, one thing we do know, we're all not privy to 40 doctors. We're all not privy to helicopter rides to great hospitals. We're not privy to the wonder drugs that they gave him or the treatments that they gave him. When likely so, being he's president of the United States, of course they're going to pull out all the stuff. But John Q. Public that's not available to him. So I get sick and get coronavirus, and I wind up getting transported in an ambulance to a hospital. If I wind up on a respirator, only God knows whether or not I'm going to walk back out the hospital. I don't know. So
if you get sick, you just a something out.
Exactly. A double hockey sticks out. So the thing is that when we talk about voting White Harris, and the last, because we'll be on. I'm not going to be conscious of people's time and the timing that you have to allow us to talk. But my appeal for the last 8 minutes of this conversation, my appeal is this: let's not vote for someone who can promise us more money in our pocket. When if the economy tanks, the money won't matter. Let's not vote for an individual who talks loud and draws a crowd and makes a lot of noise, but doesn't say anything. Let's not vote for an individual because he was a TV reality star or because his hair looks good some days. I'm like, well, I'm throwing stuff out there because I've heard some reasons why people voted, and I'm shocked by it, but I shouldn't be. Let's not vote for an individual who's promising you what they may be able to do because it sounds good. And please, let's not vote for an individual because he wasn't the other guy at that time. But let's do this. Let's vote for a president who has a track record, not only as a sitting U.S. senator, but as a vice president for 8 years. Let's vote for an individual who has given us a plan of how they're going to make sure that they protect Social Security and Medicare. Let's vote for an individual who has given us a plan of how they're going to increase the minimum wage, starting at $15 minimum, starting at, not working to get it to that, but starting there. Let's vote for an individual who has given us the confidence to knowing he knows what it's like to be unemployed because his father was unemployed and lost his job. Let's talk about a man that understands what it's like to lose a family member because he lost his wife and daughter to a car accident. Let's talk about a president, a hopeful, that has the understanding of getting back the peace and security of a country who respects one another. Let's talk about a president who is openly out of his mouth said Black Lives Matter. Let's talk about a Biden-Harris ticket who has worked to ask for forgiveness of what they believed to be a good plan at the time. But in 2020 has come back and told you, we don't believe that the plan that we voted on many years ago was a good plan. Let's vote for a president hopeful who has the vision to bring our country back to civility, to where our neighbors now speak to each other, and that will get rid of a virus, or at least get a virus under control, where we can at least look at our neighbors face to face and not behind a Zoom meeting, a brick wall, or behind layers of cloth, because we cannot walk out in public without something over our face. I appeal to the voters now who are on the fence, Dr. Barrett. I appeal to your voters, to your listeners, who have yet to cast their ballot, who have yet to pick it up off the dining room table, who have yet to make a plan to go out and vote, because they think that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is just like those other guys in 2016. I ask you, I appeal to you, I beseech you, therefore, brother, that you would look deeply and vote your conscience, but also get the facts. If you don't understand something, please reach out. Dr. Barrett, you can share my information with anyone who calls you or texts you or email you and say, I still have questions. I have a team of young people who are on fire for this election. I have a team of pastors who are working tirelessly, day and night, getting ready for November the 3rd, who are working tirelessly with our effort to change the way things look in Washington, and to then change the way things look at across America, especially in the state of Arizona, who right now is looking at, if the polls were to, if the election was to happen today, according to the polls, we would turn Arizona blue. But a lot can happen in the next 72 plus hours. A lot can happen. I need you guys. I need that undecided voter. I need that family member who has voted to now go and say to the undecided voter in their family, I need you to get out here and I need you to make a choice. I need you to vote for righteousness. I need you to vote for fairness. I need you to vote for truth. I need you to vote for civility. I need you to vote for what is right. I need you to vote for a Biden-Harris ticket on November the 3rd. And then I need you to get out and volunteer like your life depends on it. I need you to get out to the polling stations and just help encourage those who are in line. I need you to help get those to the polls who are not going to be able to get there. I need you to call some friends and neighbors, and I need you to call family members and say, hey, have you voted? And if you voted, great. Now let's mobilize and get some other people who can vote. If you haven't voted, why haven't you voted? And then I need you to appeal to their sense of decency. Let's vote for a president hopeful that will give us better than what we've got and help us move into a future that these young people I'm telling you about, Dr. Barrett, these young people I'm talking about today, these young black men and women and young Democrats and these young students and these student bodies all over the United States who are fighting right now to get President hopeful Joe Biden and President hopeful Vice President Kamala Harris in as our next President and Vice President of these United States of America. It is my prayer, as well as with other preachers I work with side by side, as well as the families and the households of those who have been affected by COVID, those who have been affected by a loss in income, those who have been affected by family members who have lost their jobs, who have become sick. I'm looking at the suicide rate, and it's astounding the numbers of our people who are committing suicide because they have lost hope. Man, that hurts me to the core, Dr. Barrett. Our people are losing hope. But guess what can bring that hope back? November the 3rd. If you still have your ballot right now, you have till midnight to get it to the mail. If you're going to vote early, you have one more day to do that. And if you're still not sure, November the 3rd, come out like your life depends on it. Get in line at your voting place. Make sure you have the right information, and let's get out there to bring home a Joe Biden had enough of the death, who has had enough uncertainty, and who has had enough of this uncivil lifestyle that we've been living. If we come together, Dr. Barrett, and we vote Biden-Harris for president and vice president of these United States 2020, I guarantee this thing is going to turn around. Doctor, I thank you for this time.
Yes, and if you have any questions, you can call me at 480-843-1317, or you can call Apostle Holt at
480-316-9912.
Amen. We thank you for your time. We thank you for Apostle Holt. We thank you for your time and consideration in informing us the importance of getting out and voting. Not only voting, but the importance of the candidate necessary to vote for. And that candidate is a Biden-Harris ticket.
Amen.
Thank you, and God bless.